What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of RPO College Football Podcast. I'm your humble host, Jerome Jones, and I'm super excited today because we got a special guest today. But before we get to that, I want to introduce my guy. You already know who he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ray Roberts. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, Jerome. How are you?
Good man, good man. Had the holiday going on, and get some cool stuff with had a Secret Santa with the jobs and stuff like that. So I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. And of course, we got the man. You already know. You already see this guy down here. You haven't seen him on a podcast before, but he's a close friend of mine, Mr. ESPN Plus, Mr. Clemson Sports Talk writer, the other man, the myth, the legend, my guy, my deep friend, Mr. Luke Winstel. How you doing, sir?
Oh, doing great, Jerome. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad to join you today.
Yeah, man. If you guys don't know, Luke is a phenomenal recruiter. He knows all about like high school football, especially here in Georgia. Met him at the Senior Bowl a few years ago. Me and him became really good friends. One of the guys I really lean on when it comes to football knowledge, not just high school, but college football. Unfortunately, he is a Falcon fan. He just admitted it today, but we're not gonna crucify him for that. But Luke,
I'll play.
do me a favor, just give us a little intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I kind of did most of that for you, but tell us a little about yourself, what you're up to, and things like that. How's your holiday?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's not the normal setup for me here today. I'm about halfway to Miami, heading down, getting ready for the Orange Bowl. I'll be covering Clemson there for Clemson Sports Talk. So excited for that one. It's the first bowl game I've ever covered. And outside of that, I do some broadcast work for ESPN Plus and travel around and do the high school circuit in terms of recruiting and then NFL draft circuit once we get into Senior Bowl and that whole area of the calendar. So really
Yeah,
looking forward to what we've got coming up here in the spring.
yeah, Mister Do It All, Mister one of the hardest worker I know in this sport, man. So Luke, it's always a pleasure. It's a great pleasure to have you on for the first time to the RPO College Football Podcast. As you guys know, we always have our chat room. So Mr. Don here says hello. What's up? What's going on, Don? Thanks for being in here. Don, thanks for being in here, man. I feel like we haven't seen Don in a while, man. It's good to see you in here for sure. But yeah, let's get right into some of our topics, man, because I want to talk about some recruiting stuff because since we have Mr. Luke here, so signing day was last Wednesday actually, and me and Ray kind of went into it a little bit, talked about what our feelings are about it. I kind of wanted to know what's some of the things that you've seen, Luke, since you are coming on now. Some of the things that you've seen, who signed, who some of the biggest surprises to you. Just give us a little insight of how the whole situation been for, as you've seen from last week.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting looking at when Mario Cristobal comes to Miami, we say, okay, he is a master recruiter. He's back in his home territory. Seems like a good fit. And even though Miami had a fairly abysmal season, their recruiting class finished top 5 consensus. And they did a great job, especially at the offensive tackle spots. Jerome, I know we got to look at some of those IMG guys. And
Yeah.
they brought him in, Samson Okunlola, who I know you've talked to as well.
Yes, sir.
Those kinds of signees, the blue chippers, that was one where if you look at on the field, if you look at the trajectory of the Miami program over the past decade, up and down a little bit, but doesn't seem like it's swinging forward as much as some other programs are, like Texas, for example, who recruited very well. But Miami, I think for a lot of people, could be a bit of a surprise based off of what they did in the season. So I look at that. I look at some things of Deion Sanders gets in the mix at Colorado. He takes that team that only had one win last year to a top 40 recruiting class. They've got several guys we know from Georgia. So those kind of things that developed later, and that's why we say signing day, and early signing day is always so interesting.
Yeah, it's always an exciting time to look at, especially when you're looking at your favorite teams and things like that. If you guys don't know, my favorite team is the Michigan Wolverines. Ray's favorite team is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So, Ray, sorry, Luke, if you can just kind of go over some of our teams. So, like starting with Notre Dame, what was some of the something that you may want to take away from Notre Dame's recruiting class?
Yeah, for Notre Dame, they got off to a really strong start. They were up there at number one in the turning the corner into the senior year for a lot of these guys in their cycle. They lost some commits. Season was up and down for them, but they finished top 10. I like what Marcus Freeman's building. They've got, 24 stars that have signed or are about to sign on 24/7 Sports. So you take a look at Notre Dame, the momentum's in the right direction. They're building the talent, and Marcus Freeman is continuing to win the battles. The likability for him when he was an assistant or when he was a coordinator was always a key factor. We'd always heard that name of him being a top recruiter in the past. And now with him as a head coach, they're doing good work up there.
Yeah. Well, Ray, do you have anything you want to kind of like add to what Luke's saying about Notre Dame?
No, just what Luke. I agree. He's done a great job recruiting wise. At one time, it looked like Peyton Bowen may be going to Notre Dame, and
Yeah.
Damon Moore was in the mix for a long time, and not getting them guys kind of hurt me a little bit and hurt the program a little bit. But he's done a really good job. Quarterback is the one position where they need to get a guy in here that can really play. Talking about the Miami program, I guess Luke covers them a little bit. They need to just stick with a quarterback too, man. Let Alex Van Dyke either go out there and do the job or not do the job, and then go from there with it. So,
yeah. Oh, and then Luke, as me, you kind of know Dante Moore. We've been a couple of 707 things like that here in Georgia. What can you say about Dante Moore? First of all, not going to Oregon and been talked about. Sorry, not going to Notre Dame first. And it was a lot of speculations on him and possibly him and Carr going there at the same time. Then he goes to Oregon, and now he didn't go to Oregon. Now he's where he's at again?
UCLA, yeah.
UCLA, yeah. So kind of go on. What's your thoughts on that? Me and Ray kind of talked about that last week. I want to know what's your thoughts on him as being recruited and his kind of like flipping between kind of a couple of schools.
Yeah, Dante, I mean, from what we've seen in person, I think he's really smooth. He's got good footwork. He's got the poise of a quarterback, and playing in the Cam Newton C1N program, traveling across the country. We know he's been against top competition before, so I checked that box as well. Size, solid, check the box. So he checks a lot of boxes in terms of filling out a quarterback profile. Of course, it's so hard to evaluate quarterbacks at this stage in their career. But for Dante, Midwest guy, was the Midwest team going to win the battle? Was Michigan going to be in there for him? Those kinds of things. But turns out West Coast, I thought Oregon did a really interesting job of still having a huge 24-hour early signing day period, but losing their top guy and still having a huge one. So that was impressive from Dan Lanning to flip that around and have it not be a killer to where they can flip the quarterback commit Austin Novosad from Baylor and make that all work okay. So Dante to UCLA, I think, is a cool fit because his smoothness, his maturity would fit in well into Chip Kelly's system as someone that could play as an underclassman, first year, second year player. So when you look at that fit of the mind of Chip Kelly and Dante Moore and the potential opening of playing time in the next 1 to 2 years, I like the fit at UCLA. I mean, I always think it would have been interesting if he had stayed in the Midwest or added to Michigan's top 20 in class or to Notre Dame's top 10 in class, but became a crown jewel prospect for a team out West that will be playing in the same conference as Michigan, I believe, as weird as that is to say. Yeah.
No, weird. Yeah. Definitely weird to say. So what is, I mean, I know you are a lot more closer with, hearing why people kind of move around and things like that. Do you get any kind of like intel of like what was the decision behind going to UCLA instead of Oregon? Because you've been locked on for Oregon for a few months now. Any rumblings on any exclusives? I don't know about why.
Yeah, good question. I didn't hear anything from Dante personally, but there are some things when you look at the depth chart. I think the path to play time at UCLA is clear. Oregon's got Bo Nix. They've got plenty of talent in that quarterback room as well. They've been recruiting strongly there, and I think UCLA offers that opportunity. I also have to wonder the NIL market around LA, Southern California, those kinds of areas has to be fairly interesting, I would think. So I think there's upside there as well. But of course, Oregon's got the Nike deal and all that. So there was good opportunities either way for Don.
Yeah.
It's just how talented he was. But I think there's nothing that UCLA can't offer that another school could at that point. I mean, really.
Yeah, and that's some of the stuff that me and Ray was talking about was like, he couldn't really go wrong at either spot. I guess you're right about definitely the depth chart side of things. Ray, you want to add to the anything that we said real quick?
No, I'd just like to get Luke's opinion on what he thinks about the NIL and maybe what he thinks about the transfer portal.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you look at the way that the portal is being used right now. Of if a starter and you've been there for a couple of years, it's just to hop in and see what's going on. I think there's going to be plenty of different rules, different strategies that come into play. The advantage of it is if you're a fan of a pro.
I think we lost Luke.
Won 6 games, or a fan of a program like, are we back?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, cool. Sorry. So if you're a fan of a program like Michigan State, Colorado, Florida State, those types of programs that are in the process of a quick turnaround or already have had a quick turnaround, like Florida State to me would be a preseason top 15, shortens the leash on the coaches because there's other schools that have shown, hey, we can get in there and get going really quickly. But because of that turnover, it gives you more hope if your team is a 500 or below team. But it's concerning to see the 1,500 plus players in the portal and to see the predicament of who's on first. You don't even know. We follow the game. I think there's several players that we don't even really know where they are or where they stand or who's going where, and it's just so much movement. I think there will be where you have the 3 schools in 4 years or 4 schools in 4 years, and that might not be good for someone's development or their game. I think it can be, about 40% of portal guys are landing at a spot, and then of that 40%, how many are thriving? I think that's something that as the numbers continue to grow, people will realize, hey, maybe we shouldn't just jump in, and those decisions might decline in the future.
Yeah.
One more question, Luke. I have a real concern about between NIL and the portal that they've kind of created free agency in college football. Do you have any concern about that 5-10 years from now?
Think about the way we have free agency in the NFL. You sign a deal, you're locked into a certain term. I think the thing with college football is you don't have the years, you don't have this stuff locked in. So I would say
there's no real term, like, because I'm sorry for cutting you off, but like with NFL, there's like you got a contract and you got years that you're going to go, and even with that contract, you got a cap where there's no cap to it. So go ahead, Luke. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, you're good. And it's the thing that is kind of an issue is having to do in-home visits with your current players to recruit your own guys to come back. Like, I understand if it's a situation where Nick Chubb is thinking about declaring for the draft and you want to sit down and talk. But if you've got a sophomore that you're not sure is going to be on your roster for spring practice and you're having to re-recruit, I think that's concerning because these coaches are already locked in. We've seen like Michigan's already offered multiple 2026 prospects. So they're working down the line in high school, recruiting the portal, recruiting their own players. I think that's really not a good position for these coaches to be in. So that's a concern. The terms, of course, like I know players sign sheets and, sign their paperwork, but just knowing that in a year you could lose your entire DB group. Like UNC lost a majority of their DB room to portal, draft, different things. And it's not just your seniors graduating or guys declaring early now. It's that extra factor. So with so much movement, I think there's a lot of situations where that can be harmful for a team, for a player. So it's something that really has to be examined carefully. For sure.
With me, like, Peyton Bowen, who's a defensive back from Texas, he was basically committed to Notre Dame for like 11 and a half months. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks, just completely changed his mind. Of course, being a Notre Dame fan, that bothered me. But being a college football fan, it just bothers me. It really does. It just bothers me. It's like there's no commitment. These guys are young men who don't seem to really care about what their word is. It's like whatever, I think however they feel from day to day, week to week is a little scary for me.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is tough, I have to try to clarify to people on this. Of people say, "Oh, he's a commit, like we got him." I'm like, no. Think about back in the day. I say back in the day. Let's talk like 2015. A lot of people would have like hard and soft commits on their profile of like, oh, the analysts think he's a hard commit or a soft commit. Well, now I tell people, especially if the guy commits more than a year in advance, that's a soft commit. That's a verbal of, hey, this is my top school, but there's a lot of time left. So those kinds of things of like even Dylan Raiola, right? Ohio State, he committed very early, and we're not even we're just about a year within his signing day, and that's already changed potentially. With the decommitment, he could recommit, but those kinds of things I tell people, when you think you've got your class locked in, you don't until the paperwork's in. Like a commit is not what it used to be of maybe 95% or 90% chance you're getting the guy. A flip would be uncommon. Now it's like, no, expect the unexpected, and you're going to lose plenty of guys in flips, but if your coaching staff is good, they'll flip a few guys back like what Oregon did. So
I think the other thing is like also that these kids are also, while they're committed, they're also still going on different visits as they're committed and getting like wooed to these other teams, still watching who's going to the other teams, and they're, getting wooed and, hey, look what we got over here. Look at our fans over here. They try to get them to the best games they can to make it, that atmosphere and that feeling of, oh man, this is be a great place to play. I know a lot of players that have been doing that. Just they fully committed, but they're still visiting tons of schools. And obviously, when they're there, these schools are like, "Hey, come over here. We got this NIL deal. Hey, come over here. Look what we got over here. And hey, we got this alumni here supporting us, and this is and that." So there's a lot of that going on, and it's not illegal, so it's happening. And I think that's a big factor into like some of these commitments flipping as well.
Yeah, we look at some of the programs. So think about Clemson, for example. I've been around that program, and they don't allow guys to go on other visits. So if you're going to go on another visit, you have to decommit. Like that's just how it is. And if you're a commit that goes on a visit, you're kind of in the doghouse a bit. So people would call that old school, the way that things are compared to now. I think that's perfectly fine for the culture that Sweeney's trying to build. It's going to turn people off. Clemson lost a receiver commit in the summer to Miami because of that kind of a situation. He wanted to go on a visit, and I think Miami had offered him maybe a little better package in terms of incentives. So that happened. And for Clemson, you're going to lose guys like that. And that's just going to happen when you do it that way. But when you have the guys going on all the visits and all the different schools being entertained, that's where I say, hey, soft commit. You got to watch out. You don't count on him coming. I mean, if they do come, that's great. And it is totally within their rights to examine their options. But I just have to articulate to people, I think, that this is not the recruiting cycle of the past. It's not like it was even 3 or 4 years ago, especially not 10 years ago. So it's important to know and be, literate of, hey, I may not love it, but this is how I have to think when I follow this.
No, definitely. Before we move on to our next topic, real quick, Luke, I wanted you to kind of give a brief synopsis of how Michigan's recruiting going, because they wasn't looking too hot at first. I think they did pretty well on the turnaround. They got a couple of recruits and got a ton of transfer guys. Want to kind of get your insight of what Michigan's doing right now?
Yeah, it's important, I think, too, when we look at these rankings, like Michigan finished top 20, I think, in pretty much every major recruiting outlet. So it's important now because you say, oh, they were 20. That should have been better. Michigan's a top 2 team right now. We might even say has a chance at number 1, and we'll find out. But when you look at that, you say, oh, that doesn't match up with where I thought they would be. But now you have to take that and take the portal recruiting side by side and then try to combine it, mesh it together, make some kind of composite in your head of, was it good? Like Florida State's high school recruiting has not impressed me a ton compared to where I think they could be. They're another top 20-ish team. I think they could be top 10. But you look at their portal class and I say, oh, that's been good in the past. It's going to be good again this year. So you mash it together and say, hey, I think that's probably top 10 in terms of the talent that they have brought into the program. So because of having to mesh things together, I would say for Michigan, when you mesh in a few of the transfers and you say, oh, the talent acquisition was good there. I think Carmelo English is a guy that I've gotten to see a little bit down here in the Southeast, and adding him as a late commitment, one of the few, is good. One surprising one, Michigan has tried to recruit in Georgia, and they pulled in Ben Hall, and he's made some early waves in terms of the practice footage that was put out today of looks like a bruiser, bigger, guy that can really punish inside the tackles. So those kinds of things of having the early enrollees already generating some buzz in bowl practice, it's headed in the right direction. And I think it also helps the more committed that Harbaugh and that staff seem to the program, which of course seems good right now. A year ago, we weren't sure with the NFL flirtations, but now with that staff putting together another good season, wasn't just a flash in the pan. The talent acquisition is going, I think, as it should for a program like that. So I would say solid B plus, if not A minus type class.
Yeah, I mean, me and Ray talked about it all season. I was like very disappointed in how the recruiting was, because Harbaugh was kind of flirting with the NFL, and still kind of rumors out there. And I don't think that's ever gonna go away, honestly. But that was a big issue. And then a lot of guys, like we was talking about, Dante Moore was one of the guys that we thought was pretty high up there in his liking of schools, and wound up going to Oregon and now flipping that as well. So I do definitely agree with with the combination of the transfer portal and some of the guys they did get. I mean, they got some good defensive ends coming in, so I am excited about it. So I want to see how this goes. But just to go to our next topic, we're going to talk about some college coaches that's coming to new schools, and obviously this impacts recruiting as well. So we got Matt Rule, we got Luke Fickell, and we got Deion Sanders. Obviously, Matt Rule is going to Nebraska. Oh, wait, did I get that wrong? Yeah,
That's right.
Fickell's going to Wisconsin, and Sanders going to Colorado. Ray, I want to get your opinion on this first. What is your opinion on how this is going to impact not only recruiting, but the schools itself?
I think that, like we talked about before, I think that it makes Nebraska and Wisconsin a better product. Competing in the Big Ten and just makes them better teams. I think the Big Ten has real opportunity now with them guys coaching those two teams to maybe elevate their conference to not to the SEC, but closer than it's been for a while. So.
Yeah, it definitely makes the Big Ten stronger, and I think personally, I think the Big Ten is the next best team. Next best conference outside of SEC. You can debate that all you want, but I think it is, especially with having Ohio State and now the emergence of Michigan being one of the stronger schools. You still got Penn State, schools like that. So I think this is the next best conference, and now we got two of the bigger name coaches come to the school. Recruiting is really big. They got our guy Luke, Chief Borders, and Nebraska. I was hoping he came to Michigan. I heard he was between them and Michigan, but he went to Nebraska. So they recruiting people. They're getting some transfers. Luke, what's your take on the signings and some of the impact that they could be doing?
I would say for Matt Rule, I always look at, for a program like Nebraska that has that sleeping giant potential of, they've been a good program in the past. They've had a lot of talent. They've got boosters. They've got the assets that you need, but they need someone to really put it together and be that figurehead. So I look at what's the immediate impact. We haven't really been able to measure it yet because we're not far enough removed from the hire, but 7 transfers are coming in. That program is adding value as a top 25 transfer portal destination right now in terms of the rankings in the portal. So I would say there's some turnaround coming. There's guys like chief boarders that are high upside, that were really high guys coming out of high school that can come in and really have a shot to fight for playing time, and that new system of, hey, everybody's even now, got to separate yourself. So Nebraska, I think, is intriguing from that perspective of taking high upside guys. The high school recruiting's got a little ways to go as far as I'm concerned, but they don't have that dominance in the Midwest that even, Bo Pelini could contend with. So back when he was at Nebraska. So there's some of that. I think Fickle to Wisconsin is just always going to be intriguing because of the fact of the bowl game and what's going on, who's coaching on what sideline, and seeing him coaching Wisconsin this soon is something that I don't think we see all the time. And because of that, I'll be intrigued by what Wisconsin can be in terms of trying to rise to make that Big Ten more competitive. And the number one story in this coaching carousel is Deion Sanders, Colorado.
I'm Deion Sanders.
Guys, it's crazy. I mean, he even brought the kicker from Jackson.
Oh, yeah. I was like, whoa, the kicker?
He took all of them. And, hey, that's not a bad thing. There are going to be 15 guys already that are coming in through the transfer portal to Colorado. We know Travis Hunter's the big dog. There's been some interesting movement in terms of recruiting. We saw like 3-star Kason Wiseman from Paulding County in Georgia. Mm-hmm. He was a hard Kansas commit. And then Deion Sanders invites him out to one of their events. I'm not sure what you specifically call it, but invites him out, and then boom, earns the commitment. So Wiseman's going, and then Adam Hopkins from Southern Georgia, and that southern part of the state, is formerly an Auburn commit, now headed to Colorado. And then, Hunter's coming. Mm-hmm. Omar Wyatt from Valdosta, 4-star defensive lineman, just committed for the 24 class. The waves are, in my opinion, at least the Southeast for recruiting. If you thought it was going to be good, if you thought it was going to be big, it's big.
Yeah, definitely big. I think we lost Luke again, but yeah, I agree with him. Just looking at who Sanders got in here, obviously his boys are coming back. His son played the quarterback for Jackson State. It looked like he got a chance at least to be starter. Most likely going to be a starter, but he at least got the chance to be a starter there. Ray, what's your take on Shamar? I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for them, to go there. We'll see when it all plays out. I mean, I don't know exactly how Deion Sanders is going to fare at Colorado. I think that he's a name, and people just seem to gravitate towards him. So, I think it'll be good for him. And the conference is going to be wide open with UCLA and USC leaving. So it's going to be a wide open conference. When we were talking about the Big East, we didn't even mention the fact that USC and UCLA are going to be in the Big East now too, or the Big Ten.
I kind of forgot about that.
Really elevates that conference. Really does. So
yeah, it does. It does. So yeah, that's gonna be great to see. But speaking of some of the games, we're gonna go into the bowl season and the playoffs. Do some bowl predictions. See what we think. Luke, I'm very intrigued to see who you gonna pick, because you can't. Yeah, there's one game in particular. I'm very curious what you're gonna say, because we're gonna talk about that in a second. But let's get to our first game. We're gonna get Texas versus Washington. Texas is favored by 3. Texas being 8-4. Washington, it was 10-2. They had a really great year this year. Ray, I'm starting with you on this one. Who you got?
I got Texas in that game. I think they're a favored team. I think they're a more physical team. Mm-hmm. I think Washington's a good team, but I think Texas is a more physical. I think they're both well-coached teams, so I think it's going to be a good game. I really do.
Definitely. Is B.J. Raji going to play? I said not B.J. Raji. I'm sorry, Bryant.
Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson.
Definitely picked the wrong name.
You know what? I don't know about that, to be honest with you. I would not be surprised if he doesn't play, but I don't know that.
I believe that's Remy. What's going on, Remy? Yeah, the games haven't been the greatest yet. I mean, this week is definitely going to pick up. So
We talked about that last week, though. We haven't gotten to the meats and potatoes of it yet. So we'll see.
definitely. Luke, what's your prediction on this game?
I'll take Texas. I'll take them with the points as well. I think that they are getting ready and gearing up for the SEC. They've had their different bumps throughout the course and the way this season, but the talent level's there, the talent acquisition's going good for them. So in terms of this game and the on-field product, the line of scrimmage is something that seems to have been a point of emphasis for Coach Sarkisian over really his tenure there. He's brought in guys. He's continuing to bring in guys. And I think that's where this game goes differently. I think that's similar to what Ray was talking about, the physicality. I think the trenches are just going to go in Texas's direction. And because of that, I'll take them to win the game.
Yeah, I'm taking Texas as well. I think it's going to be a close game, though. I think both teams are really well. Texas defense been very disappointing this year. I'm not, to say the least. I thought their defense was going to be a little bit better than it was. It's been a little shaky at a lot of times. And the offense is, that's a strong point, obviously. But, sometimes they haven't been showing me enough to make me feel comfortable or even confident that they're gonna definitely win this game. I am taking Texas, but I'm kind of like on the edge of it. I like Washington. I think they one of the fewer teams in the Pac-12 that got a pretty decent defense. So I'm gonna take Texas. I'm gonna take Texas, but I think it's gonna be a better game than I think a lot of people think as well.
I think Texas is a team that needs to get out to a lead so they can stick with the running game.
Yeah,
and when they can't do that, they struggle a little bit. So
100%. All right, Ray, we're gonna get to your team. Notre Dame versus South Carolina. Notre Dame is favored by 2. Ray, you can start off with that one.
Well, of course, I got Notre Dame to win the game, but I would feel more comfortable if Michael Meyer and Isaiah Foskey were playing, but they're not. So we'll see.
Yeah, they're a big part of your offensive game plan. They really
are. Mike Meyer is our best player on offense.
Yes.
Isaiah Foskey is our best player on defense. So not having them is not going to help us for sure. So
correct. Luke, what do you think?
I will take South Carolina to finish off the season with a bang. I have learned to not go against South Carolina and not pick against them after what they've done down the stretch. I think it's interesting with opt-outs of having to keep track. It seems like for every game you've got to, take notes almost of who's playing, who's not playing. How do I even pick this game? How do I know what the X factors are even going to be? Mm-hmm. But in this one for South Carolina, they have lost a lot of guys in the portal, maybe a little chip on their shoulder, or lost a few key guys to the portal, I would say, like Jaheim Bell. That was surprising to me. Valdosta, Georgia native. But
good.
Yeah, I would just take them for South Carolina. I would say with the opt-outs from Notre Dame's side, I'll give South Carolina the edge. They're the hot team. I think if all things were even of, not having the opt-outs, Notre Dame's probably the better team, but I'll take South Carolina in this game.
This question for you, Luke, and you too, Jerome. Since we're paying these guys now, when do they act like professionals and stick with their team until the season's actually over is my question.
I can't answer that one, right? You got some. Oh, man.
I think having incentives for bowl games is something that is appropriate. I think that's something that if someone were to put together a system of really making it the athlete, sure. But I think also at the same time, if you're in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl and you've got a chance to get hurt, that number goes down to 2 million or 3 million. I don't think the Gator Bowl would be worth it to me. So I can understand where people come from, but I think there's also an incentive structure to where it could be worth it. There could be more in it for me. So I understand the decision for some people, but it does make these games a little harder to
win. Yeah, well, let me get to my prediction. I'm gonna agree with Luke on everything he said, and I'm gonna give a slight nod to South Carolina simply because I think Mike Meyer was a big part of your offense, and not having him, and y'all already struggled early in the season to have that identity, and now y'all finally have that identity, and one of your biggest key contributors in blocking is not going to be there for your running game. I feel like it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I'm not giving South Carolina the biggest nod to it, but I'm gonna give them a slight nod. Now, when we're talking about the guys that are committing, I'm gonna say that um, I like the idea of maybe giving them some kind of incentive, like hey, if you play in these games, we'll give you X amount of money to
So we
play
got
them.
to pay them more money.
Hey, because look, this is the thing. This is the thing, right? If
No, man.
after a while, all these kids gonna be opting out of these games. People's just not gonna start liking watching some of these games. I think it's bringing down some of the viewership because it's like, dude, we don't even have our best players. Like, why am
Bro,
I?
do you remember like a few years ago when we first started debating if players should get paid or not? This is the reason why they shouldn't have been paid. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they opened Pandora's box, so I mean, we're living in that world now.
They're ruining my sport, is what they're doing.
Yeah. But yeah, let's get to our next game. But I do agree with you, Ray. It is making it tough to be able to.
Tough. How do you root for a guy that doesn't want to be part of his team?
Yeah, I get it.
Right.
I definitely get it. Yeah, that's out of my pay grade.
I also think
it's like, 'cause I agree with you, Ray. I don't know how to answer that. It's just hard to answer it. Like it's something that we've been talking about for weeks now and months even.
So now we got to pay them. We got to pay them to get recruited. We got to pay them to get on the team, and now we got to pay them to play the bowl game. Wow.
One thing I think that would help with the bowl games is the ACC championship, I think, was December 3rd, and now 27 days later, Clemson will play again, for example. And a lot of teams, especially if you weren't in a conference championship, we're talking over a month of layoff. I think if the bowl games were closer and you didn't have to hang around for so long and go through the practices and miss your Christmas and New Year's, some of that, I think if we had these bowl games played at a more reasonable time and maybe the national championship and college football playoff heat up around this time, I think the layoff can hurt as well if you're having to hold off on your NFL draft prep or you're having to hold off on that for about a month in some cases. I think that's one thing that could shift that could help with some of it. If you play a week after the previous game, okay, it's just one more week or 2 more weeks, even 10 days. I think that might change things.
Yeah, I agree. And plus, now we're getting the expansion of the playoff, so that might help out a little bit. We might have more guys, prefer to stay if they have a chance to be in a championship instead of like just this bowl game. That's kind of like a, extra reward kind of thing, I guess. Yeah. So I think that might give more players more incentive to play instead of opting out. We'll see how it goes. We don't know how it goes. We haven't had this expansion yet, so it might help. It might not help. I don't know, Ray.
Just open up the checkbook, man. Pay them all. No
Throw that money.
There you go.
All right, we're gonna get to a very intriguing game right now because this game is very close to Luke. Not only because he covered Clemson, but at one point he did cover Tennessee as well. So I'm gonna start with you, Ray. Luke. Tennessee, Clemson. Clemson is favored by 4.5. Who you got?
This is another one of those games where the decks are not really even in terms of what we saw in the regular season compared to what we're going to see in the bowl game. Tennessee has got, of course, quarterback injury to Hendon Hooker. They've got opt-outs to the point where I say, okay, I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't feel comfortable picking a team that, Joe Milton, fairly unknown in terms of these higher stakes games against top 10 teams. So, or at Tennessee, I would say. So, not sure about quarterback. Jalen Hyatt's opted out. They've had some defensive opt-outs like Jeremy Banks, someone that I really enjoyed getting to cover at Tennessee. So, I take a look at that and say, well, it's a lot of notable players that are not going to be in that game. And I know Tennessee will travel well, and they will be a team that plays hard to try to put a cap and win the closer in a good season. But Clemson's opt-out outside of the portal guys is Miles Murphy. Trenton Simpson will be with the team but won't play. And those are two positions, especially that edge position with Murphy, a spot where Clemson's so deep, it's next man up. Cade Klubnik at quarterback's exciting. There's momentum. That's the X factor for Clemson, of course, but I'll take the Tigers and the points in that game.
Definitely. Ray, what's your take on this one?
I agree with what Luke said. I see Clemson winning the game. The only shot that I could see with Tennessee is if Clemson somehow turns the ball over, maybe.
Yeah.
They turn the ball over a decent amount this year. If that happens again, maybe they. But I don't see where they'll lose a game. I don't. So.
Definitely. All right. So my take on this game is it's very funny because I have ties with both of the starting quarterbacks in this game. It's funny because both of these quarterbacks are not the starting quarterbacks. At least in the beginning of the season. You know, we got Clemson, who's have Cade Klubnik, a guy that we interview, a really good guy from Tennessee. I'm sorry, from from Texas. Very good kid, very productive. A guy that we noticed very early in his career that he's going to be a star, and you know he played very well in the last few games for Clemson, replacing DJ. And then we got Hooker, who's injured in this game, so he won't be playing, and he was in Heisman talk and things like that. And you know Joe Milton, I know Joe Milton very well, being a starter for Michigan for some time. I'll say I'm not a fan of Joe Milton. I will say this: being a Michigan fan and watching him play, he made watching those games very hard. I'm not gonna lie. So I am gonna go with Clemson on this. Big fan of Klubnik. I think their defense is finally putting it together and looking like that top defense that we thought they would be in the beginning of the season. It was very rough in the beginning, but you know, I feel like in what was the game that they were very close in?
All of them.
Yes, you're right.
You know the issue.
I'm sorry. It was the Syracuse game. The Syracuse game, I think, was the game that really turned the defense around. Like the defense really played well in that game, and then more in the second half, they started really playing, and then since then they've been playing very well. In the beginning of the season, it was very inconsistent. I think the defense is going to do well. Ray, you look like you got something to say to me.
They didn't play well against Notre Dame, and the game against Notre Dame wasn't close. But besides that,
sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, really, so I'm getting at all the wins. Clemson was good enough to beat a lot of teams this year, but not to beat them the way that they should beat them, or the talent disparity, or the expectations, or even covering the spread sometimes. It was like, this does not feel like the Clemson that we're used to the past 5-10 years. And things picked up. The ACC championship game went over UNC, gives people a lot of hope. But there were a lot of games that shouldn't have been that close. And Notre Dame, Clemson just never got going. That was very well played by Notre Dame.
Yeah.
No, like what Notre Dame did is they let their edges just rush up field and then double team the interior of the defensive line and just basically just created avenues to run through. So, I mean, I don't think that Tennessee could do that, but I didn't think Notre Dame would be able to do it either, to be honest with you, but they did. So,
and Hooker before his injury was playing out his mind. So I think not having him there, my disloyalty or distrust toward Joe Milton. I think the defense is definitely, like I said, stepping up in trending in the right direction. For them to win this game. So I got Clemson as well. So me and Lucas agreeing on everything so far. So let's get to our next game. We're gonna get to some bowl games, and the first one the playoff game. First game we're gonna talk about is my team, Michigan playing TCU. Michigan is favored by a lot, actually. At least the last time I seen it. I'm gonna look now. 7.5. 7.5. So Ray, what's your take on that one?
I have Michigan winning the game. I don't know if they'll cover that number, but I think they'll win the game.
Yeah. Luke?
I will take Michigan to cover. I like TCU. I think they're very good, but Michigan just seems like a well-oiled machine. I had a few things throughout the season. I said, if they do this, if they, beat Ohio State, if they can prove to me that they can throw the ball well, if they can do if they can prove they can replace the edge talent they lost, check. I say, okay, there's no reason for me to pick against Michigan, even when you add the spread in there. every test that I've tried to say, hey, I'll be skeptical. I'm not sure. They've passed it, some of them with flying colors, like beating Ohio State, winning the conference. And there's kinds of things I look at and say, okay, I'm very confident in Michigan right now. And I think if they continue this positive momentum, they're the one team that I think can give Georgia a real run for their money.
It's funny because Luke would never admit that to me in person.
Yep.
You would never admit that to me in person. I appreciate that, Luke. But I'm in the same way with Luke.
Yeah.
Right now, I just think that Michigan has the recipe to win it all. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love McNamara last year. He did great things, but the dynamic of having JJ McCaffrey right now playing, a lot of that RPO system, being able to throw the ball down the field. He seemed like he's maturing throughout the season. It's really helping. Obviously, Blake Corum's not going to be playing for the Michigan anymore. He'll probably be going straight to the draft after his injury. Very unfortunate, but having Donovan Edwards, a guy that I was very, very high on when we recruited him, and to see him play last year, I was like, man, this kid Donovan Edwards, if he could put it all together, he's going to be something special. He started off in the season with a lot of fumbles, which kind of put him in the doghouse. But he really stepped up, especially when Corum got out. Even on one hand, this man's playing with one hand, and he's still balling the way he is. I don't know how you play with one hand and not fumbling after he had fumbling issues. I'm telling you, that Ohio State game, I was looking at that the entire day. I was scared. Like, dude, he had fumble issues and he's trying to carry the ball with one hand. I don't know how he did it, but go ahead, Ray.
The thing is that you'd have to hit him for him to fumble the ball. Ohio State didn't hit him much. So
He was
he basically just ran open every time
he touched the ball. Definitely going. So yeah, I mean, I love what we're doing. We're starting to utilize the tight ends more like we used to. Schoolmaker playing very well. As our tight end, I thought we would have Eric All. He got injured. Now he's just transferred. A guy that we interviewed, I like him a lot. But we definitely using our offense in the right way, and obviously the offensive line and defensive line. Ray says it all the time. That's where you start off with, and Jim Harbaugh always built that offensive line and defensive line always. So I think that's going to be the hardest test for TCU is actually in the trenches. Now they got good skill players. Duggan's a good quarterback, but I just think like in the trenches, I think we're going to dominate. And after losing Aiden Hutchinson and Ojabo last year, I was very skeptical of how this defensive line is going to play. And obviously, we don't got those same guys and the same production, but as a unit, they're playing very well. So I'm obviously taking Michigan, but I think that this is a game where we can really put our stamp in it and really show the world that hey, we're serious and we're ready for Georgia, because I don't think Ohio State's gonna win. But anyway, that's the next game. So so let's just talk about it. Ohio State versus Georgia. I'm gonna actually start off with Luke because Luke's going. Okay, all right. Bye, Luke. Whatever. No, he'll be back. He probably have some internet issues. But all right, Ray. What you think about that game? What's your overall how that's gonna go?
Georgia.
Let me tell the line real quick. So Georgia's favored by 6.5.
I'll take Georgia. Excuse me. I'll take Georgia.
Ooh, wake up.
Yeah. I'll take Georgia to win the game. I don't have faith in Ohio State's defense right now. I just don't. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that I think it's Georgia. Georgia's defense, and I still don't think Georgia's defense is as good as they were last year, but still a very, very, very good defense. Offense is clicking. Stenham's playing better. Again, that's a whole argument with the Heisman thing. You know how I feel about that, but he is playing better. He's not turning the ball over, which is always the most important thing on quarterback. Luke, welcome back. What is your take on the Ohio State Georgia game?
I'll take Georgia by 2 touchdowns or less. Anything 2 touchdowns, I'll take them. I think that the defense of Georgia is dominant again. Sure, LSU exposed some weaknesses, and LSU's a good team. I think the DBs from Georgia are the spot, but I have a hard time thinking that, if Georgia is able to shut down the run like they have really against everybody and be able to dictate the tempo of the game the way they did against teams like Tennessee and like they're hoping to do against Ohio State and dictate how the offense attacks them, they can do that again. I think it seems likely Ohio State will have a tougher time getting those receivers going. And if they're not able to get off to a good start, Georgia's offense with receivers already there, receivers coming in the future that are very exciting for Georgia, the pass catching dynamic puts that team over the top to where, sure, maybe the defense has taken a step back, but the offense has taken a step up. If Ladd McConkey's healthy, then I think it's another opportunity for him to continue his path from last season into this season, now postseason, of becoming a household name and the next player at Georgia that goes from not that highly recruited to potentially a nationally known guy. So those kinds of things I look at. Georgia's speed at receiver, assuming that group is healthy, is going to be a big difference maker on that side of the ball.
Definitely. Hey, Luke, real quick, play a little difficult advocate a little bit. Obviously, I seen how Ohio State played against Michigan. Their last game they played, I believe, yeah. In that game, they started off trying to run the ball and they completely abandoned the run. Georgia being a really good run defense and Ohio State reluctantness to try to run. You think they're going to try to pass on you guys a lot more, keep that on there, or you think they should be keep it honest and try to mix in the run to get you guys a little bit off balance?
I think it's something where CJ Stroud is going to have a lot of pressure on him to execute early, and I think that passing game is going to be on him early and often. Of how do they choose to get him established? Is it screen game, short passes? What are they looking for? Are they going to try to pull momentum with an early deep shot? But it's all up to whether Stroud can get an early rhythm, to me, of the passing game. Of the run game's probably going to have a hard time regardless of how the game's played. But can Stroud establish that early rhythm to keep them going, give them an early lead, keep Ohio State within a touchdown or two? So I look for that early rhythm is going to be the big key for me.
Definitely. As much as I would love to beat Ohio State twice in 1 year, I do want to see Georgia. And we gotta get revenge from last year, man. Y'all crushed us. It was embarrassing. So I would love to see that. I think that would be the better game anyway. So that's just my opinion on that. All right, let's get to a couple of games that are not in the playoffs but are after the playoff games. And the first one we're gonna be talking about is Penn State versus Utah. Utah is actually favored by 2.5. Now, Luke, you don't know how, and hold on before I put that on. Remy says Ohio State doesn't believe in deep shots, unfortunately. They took a couple against Michigan. They did take a couple against Michigan, so
that's really going to be their only shot at winning the game, though. Stroud is very good at avoiding pressure, and he's very good at getting rid of the ball pretty quickly.
Correct.
But the fact that they're probably not going to run the ball is not going to help them out with that either. So
yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, Luke, as you know, as you may not know, me and Ray does these predictions on what teams and stuff like that, and Ray's kind of giggling right now because he knows for some reason, I have the worst jinx on Utah for some reason. So I'm very scared to say what I'm going. So I'm gonna let you guys pick first.
No, it's worse than that. Whoever he takes, take the other team. Okay.
Well,
should I go first? Y'all want me to go first? Sorry,
do it. Let's see what you got, Jerome.
I'm going Utah. I'm going Utah. I hope I don't jinx them, but I am going Utah. I think they're the better team. I like Jerome's confidence. Won twice. Luke, you don't know. This is Remy. He's one of our YouTube Facebook guys, and he's an Ohio State fan. So I know I was gonna ruffle some feathers with him. But yeah, back to this Utah game. I am picking Utah. Penn State, I do like them. They won't have their best corner playing and Joey Porter. And I think that's going to hurt them a lot on their defense. I think they lost a couple of other guys to the draft as well. Utah is one of those hot teams. They've been hot the last few weeks before this, like Luke said, this little extended break. But they've been hot, and I've been liking their game, and I've been liking them for a few years now. Again, I hope I'm not jinxing them, but we'll say. Luke, who you taking?
Well, against the advice, that I probably, I shouldn't do it. I'm going to take Utah too. I think Kyle Whittingham is an awesome coach. I think that Utah is spectacular in terms of what they can do to you defensively. I like the grinded out offense that they were able to show in a couple of games of, getting that championship in the Pac-12. So I'll take Utah. I've seen them play just a couple of games this season. I don't know that program intimately well, but from what I've seen, I come away and I say, oh, I enjoyed watching them. So I'll go with Utah. I would feel confident in what they can do.
Yeah, and the emergence of Cameron Rising, like, no puns intended, but he's been rising. Like, he's been such a great player the last couple of years, and I like the progression in his game. I really do. Ray, who you taking?
I'm going to take Utah, even though with Jerome's prediction, I'm really leaning towards Penn State, but I know James Franklin does not coach well in big games, so I'll take Utah.
Oh, this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be bad.
We're all gonna lose now, okay?
Oh,
Just so you know that we're all losing now, okay?
Oh no!
At least we all lose together.
There you go.
Yeah, let's all hold hands.
Unlike our college players that need to get paid to do everything now.
Right, it's too funny. All right. So real quickly, we're gonna get into some draft season stuff. So as you guys know, inside the Hatches, we go to the Senior Bowl each year. My guy Luke, that's where me and Luke met before. So he's really big on the Senior Bowl. Ray, for the first time, is going to the Senior Bowl this year. So I'm excited to see him down there as well. So I just want to see what some takes that you may have, Luke, from some of the guys that have been committed already.
The Senior Bowl is going to be interesting this year because I'm very curious to see what the quarterback group is going to look like. Because I think as a group, we talk most about quarterbacks. And Max Duggan is committed from TCU. That's an exciting name. Stetson Bennett from Georgia could be someone that ends up going as well. That group could be interesting. Right. It's interesting no matter what. Just think about what if Stetson comes out and makes 3 nice throws on the opening day, and then we're looking at, wait, is he like a player?
That means he'll have 10 for the whole year. Okay.
Yeah, but hey, what if Stetson comes in as that number 6 quarterback or whatever in that group, and we say, wait, is he draftable now? Is that going to be a story? That's always going to be intriguing.
He's a draftable player.
Yeah.
6th round.
He's a 7th. I would take him 7th if I was going to take him. I mean, I'm not that high on him as an NFL player, but
What's your thought about Will Levis from Kentucky?
That's one that is hard because we watch him play college football all the time, and it's really hard for someone that is the it quarterback or one of the it quarterbacks, because we see him every Saturday and we say, okay, cool. I mean, good for you. You've led Kentucky to another winning season, but is that the guy really? Like in a draft with Stroud and Young and some of these players that we really feel good about from what we've seen on Saturday and their projectability and their size, we say, Levis that's your guy, really? Like that? That's it?
I think Levis would completely benefit for going to the Senior Bowl, and here's why.
Yeah,
he's a guy that carries that Kentucky team, and when he's not doing good, that team's not doing good. When he does well, the team wins. So it's like I want to see him with more talent around him and see how he operates with that, because Kentucky talent pool is not the greatest and hasn't been the greatest since he's been there, and he's been working with what he has. So I want to see how he does with better talent, guys, on his level or higher, and passing to those guys, better protection, better running backs, things like that. So I would love to see him go to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I look at him and I say, okay, he's a good player. You can't take that away from him. But to say he's a top 3 pick or some of these mock drafts that have him at, number 4, I'm like, all right, guys, let's be careful. I think we're a little, too hard on that hype train.
Yeah.
I am a fan of his talent, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he kind of reminds me of Justin Herbert a little bit, in that he has all the tools, but people seem to have lost faith in him because he did have an up and down season.
Correct.
But he has the tools, so unlike Stetson Bennett, who has no tools.
Ooh.
Yeah. Hey.
I think that like it might be the case of, and like I said before, it's just him trying to play hero ball. I mean, again, he has to kind of put the game on his back, and sometimes it's better when you don't do that. Try to play hero ball. And when you try to do that, you make mistakes, and I think that was a lot of cases this year for his up and down play. So, like I said, I think he will definitely benefit for going to like the Senior Bowl.
I think it is difficult though when you know that you have that much pressure on you to perform every week.
Definitely, especially when you're trying. And that's another thing too. It's like when you on a team that's not that great, but like you're getting praised as this really good quarterback and you're getting first round, hype, you start pressing, you start wanting to, keep looking like the guy. But then like I said, if you don't have the talent around you, you start pressing and you start making you look bad. So that's just my opinion on that. So
I will say as well with Senior Bowl, DB is intriguing. Chris Smith from Georgia, Jordan Battle from Alabama.
Yeah, Jordan Battle just got put in yesterday.
Yeah, some of those I look at and I say, "Oh, that's a big shot. We got to go talk to him, Jerome." Like, see some of those and make that mental note. It's a big time group there.
Definitely, a guy that I'm extremely excited to be down there. Ray already knows who I'm about to say. Andre Carter, man, from Army. I mean, a guy. I think, dude, if he was in a bigger school, he would be getting talked about a lot more than he is. I mean, he is relentless pass rusher. He got that motor that you like in a guy. Good guy. He's went to Army, so obviously you're gonna get a good character guy. Very intrigued to see how he does. He got approved to go to the draft this year by the Army, which is amazing and great. And I'm very intrigued by him. I really want to interview him because I really want to talk about his story and how he went and his dominance and being in Army, because again, people in Army don't get drafted high, and I truly do believe he's gonna at least be mid to late second round, if not more, by the end of this whole draft season process. I mean, the kid is great. I like him a lot.
I know when I went to see Notre Dame play Army and down in Baltimore, Notre Dame's offensive line had no answer for him. I know that. So, none. Yeah. So,
what's your take on him, Luke?
I think that the Senior Bowl at this point extends these offers and invitations to smaller guys at first. Those are some of the first commitments we see, are some smaller schools, Boise State, Bowling Green, for example. And when we see that, we may have watched him. I know you guys have already seen Andre, but for people like me that maybe haven't gotten to go to one of his games or watch one of his games yet, I say, wait a minute. If the Senior Bowl invited him, that's not your normal run-of-the-mill player from a school that we don't see on, the national game of the week every week. So it's always worth looking into. And you look at Andre, he's someone that has tools. He has those types of projectability. You say, okay, I could see that. And you see him go against some top competition at the Senior Bowl, and you start to feel better about his level and his ability to compete with people that are the best at his group as well, or people that might even be above him in terms of your current rating. So those are always intriguing to look down the board and say, wait, I think a Bowling Green player just accepted an invite. And I say, okay, I'm not used to knowing a lot of NFL draft guys from there, but clearly if the Senior Bowl scouting staff thinks that he should go to an event like that, we should look into him. So
I mean, I'm excited about him because he had another good year this year after last year having a great year.
Correct.
So basically, him and Aiden Hutchinson last year had the same track record as far as sacks and pressures last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's a he's a very athletic kid who who you could line him up anywhere in the line of scrimmage and just let him go at the quarterback. He's a very talented player.
Sweet.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm super excited about him. And you guys, every year we've been going to the Senior Bowl, and they do an amazing job scouting and finding these guys. And sometimes it takes you to go to the Senior Bowl to like be like, oh wow, I never watched this guy. He's looking great at the Senior Bowl. Let me watch more tape on him. So this another reason why I love the Senior Bowl. Jim Nagy and the people down there do a great job of recruiting and finding the smallest school guys. But obviously, there's they always have some big name guys. So real quick, maybe a wish list kind of player that you hope goes to the Senior Bowl. Real quick, Ray, maybe somebody that you've seen that you would wish to get that invite.
Let me think. See, I don't know who is going to be at the Senior Bowl for sure. I don't have that list in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
You know who I like? I like Josh Downs from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a good wide receiver. I think that he can go there and make people take notice to how talented he really is. So, I mean, and Luke was talking earlier about North Carolina, about Clemson's one. North Carolina's defense is horrible. Horrible. But their offense is really good, and Josh Downs is a very talented guy. So,
definitely. Luke, you got somebody that you will wish to go be down there?
I'm taking a look through some of the invites. Jordan Battle was one of the ones that I really wanted to be there, and now he's accepted that invite. Nolan Smith from Georgia was a big SEC guy. I'm not sure if he'll be healthy, but even just to see him there would be interesting to get his perspective. But otherwise, I think that's a lot of what I was looking for. It's going to get interesting with Clemson's guys on the D line. Are they going to go? Is that, there's some rumors of them coming back, even though Ruko Horahoro and KJ Henry have already accepted their invites. They might come back to Clemson, and that's up for grabs. So some of those big Power 5 teams on that side of things are interesting. I think one that would be cool is, I just out of curiosity, Brenton Cox from Florida. We've seen that whole situation go down.
I was about to say him. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's one that I'm looking through and I'm like, that's just intriguing. Because if he goes and balls out at the Senior Bowl, all of a sudden we're saying, okay, we know there's some pros and cons, but where does he actually fall? Where is he on your board? So that would be really intriguing.
I really, really hope he goes. I really, really do. He's definitely one of the guys I was gonna say, Luke. So I'm glad you mentioned him. One of the guys I'm very intrigued to see, because not only his play, but like the whole situation that he's been through. And if you guys don't know, I'm not gonna like go through the whole situation, but he got pretty much kicked off the team. So I'm very intrigued to see him. And me and LaMarcus was talking about that earlier too. Brenton Cox going to the Senior Bowl. I think that would benefit him a lot, to really not only just to show his skill set, but to be able to go in front of the coaches and kind of talk about his story and explain his side of the story too. Because we know a lot of people that are very close to the situation, and we're hearing different stories. So I would love to like allow him to flesh out his side of the story as well. So I think that'd be very good. Another guy I'm very out. Obviously, being a homer, I would love to see Ronnie Bell go there. Simply because, one, I feel like last year he got injured. Before he got injured, he had a lot of drop issues. He showed a little bit of that this year, and he don't always get the opportunities that normal receivers would that's in this situation, because obviously, Michigan being a run first team, he don't get that opportunity. So I would like to see him go there, and I feel like he will be. I'm not gonna say he's gonna be as good as Christian Watkins, but like he might be a guy that might flash in the pan that people might want to look a little bit deeper into him, because he don't get those opportunities. I mean, it's the same thing with Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's doing really well for the Cleveland Browns right now. Nico Collins, another wide receiver that was with Michigan, doing very well with the Texans. So he's along those lines of guys, and I really want to see how he does against better competition and see if he can be more consistent with his catching. So that's another guy that I got on there. Any takes on that?
Sounds good.
Another one you talk about Yeah, you mentioned receivers. I think Cedric Tillman from Tennessee would be an interesting one to come after the season he's had.
Definitely. Well, that's gonna do it for us today, guys. Man, that was really fun. I really enjoyed talking some recruiting and talking some bowl games and all that stuff like that. I hope you guys enjoyed as well. Thanks for everybody that's been in the chat room and everybody that's been in here. Luke, appreciate you, man. Have fun having you on here. I love your insight and your knowledge of the game, man. And me and you always talking football, so I love being able to go on the podcast and really put that out there for people to really know who you are, because it's exciting to me to allow other people to see who you are and put you on different platforms as well. Luke, can you kind of give us a little plug in, what you're doing with some things you got inside, maybe plug some of your social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to see me on social media, it's right there at Luke WINSTEL on pretty much every platform. And overall, I'll be going to the Orange Bowl to close out the year, finish off 2022, hopefully on a strong note, and then move into 23. We'll have coverage of the Under Armour circuit coming up on social media and winstelmedia.com. We'll be looking into some 7-on-7s for high school, getting into some Clemson spring practice, summer practice action, getting the final bow tied on signing day officially in February with those moves coming then, and moving into the NFL sphere with the Senior Bowl coming end of January, early February. So coverage there at Luke WINSTEL and at winstelmedia.com, WINSTEL media.com, and we'll have it all for you there. But looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Me and Luke's going to the Senior Bowl again this year, as we will be as soon as we get those invites. Anyway, Luke's doing some incredible stuff, man. If you don't follow Luke, please follow Luke because this man is going to the top, man. Not only is he very well knowledgeable of like football in Georgia and outside of Georgia, but this guy is an incredible man. Like I say, a very, very close friend of mine, very humble guy. He'll do anything for you, and I'll do anything for this guy because this is my guy. So once again, thanks, Luke. I really do appreciate you, man, being on, and we gotta get you on again. We gotta get you on again.
Anytime. Great to meet you, Ray, and good to see you as always, Jerome.
Luke, look forward to meeting you at Senior Week.
For
Definitely.
Right.
So,
one question: do you are a Georgia Bulldogs fan also?
Well, yeah. So I'm actually Georgia guy. Grew up my whole life in Atlanta, and yeah, so that's how I grew up and covering Clemson now. So not as much of a fan now on the media side, but yeah, grew up a Georgia fan for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
he been down here all his life, so it makes sense. It makes sense, definitely.
Are you a baseball fan at all?
Baseball fan, big Braves fan. Yep. Dad's been a season ticket holder for the past 5 years. Yeah.
All right, good.
Definitely.
Of course, I'm a Phillies fan, so
Yeah. Oh, I meant to tell you, Luke, Ray's from Jersey. He's one of my
okay, got you.
as well, so.
I live in Jersey. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I've lived in Jersey since '87, so I've been here a while now. So
definitely. Well, that's gonna do it for us today, guys. We do appreciate you being on the RPO podcast. Make sure you check us out on all our social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. On Inside Hashes on Twitter. We're doing some great stuff on there, so make sure you check us out on there for all your great coverage and everything. Make sure you check us out on YouTube where we're live right now. Like our guys been in here putting in their comments. If you want to put in a comment live, just hit that notification bell so you know when we are live. And if you can't watch us live, obviously you can go on there and watch the replay on there. Just subscribe to Inside the Hashes on YouTube, and you can find all our podcasts. Maybe you missed something from last week. You go back and watch it. It's okay. Go ahead. Go do that. Make sure you hit that like button, though. But thank you guys for checking us out. I'm Jerome Jones. This is Luke right down there. And the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ray Roberts. Thank you guys so much for being out here. We appreciate each and one of y'all. And we see you next week. Peace.